For this week's Think Tank Central, I'm delighted to be joined by two very distinguished gentlemen, Dr. Rafael Marcus, a research fellow at the Department of War Studies at King's College in London, and author of a new book titled Israel, Longest War with Hezbollah. And here in our studio in Jaffa, Dr. Yossi from the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Gentlemen, both welcome. I'll start with you, Rafael. Tell me, why did it take 4 years since this event in London in 2015 and until it was published now? What happened now and what delayed the Brits from publishing it all along those years?
Hi, thanks for having me. I think you raised a very good question. The original plot was disrupted in 2015 and we're only hearing about it today. And I think what's changed is essentially the political climate. The Trump administration has really tightened financial scrutiny, tightened sanctions, and global counterterrorism efforts against Hezbollah, most obviously post getting rid of the nuclear deal. This actually mirrors a similar allegation against the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, that they alleged that the Obama administration sort of turned a blind eye to Hezbollah's global terrorism operations in light of the nuclear deal. So what we're seeing now in the UK is that the UK government turned a blind eye in 2015 or chose to keep it quiet as part of trying to keep the nuclear deal alive.
So it's mainly an Iranian issue that Hezbollah was the beneficiary of that? That's what you're saying? And currently Iran is in a different place, so Hezbollah is still is back on fire?
I mean, I think in 2015, we have to remember the context. There was multiple Hezbollah plots thwarted around that time period, 2012, Thailand, 2015, Cyprus, 2015, London. And there was also numerous plots launched by the Iranians against Israeli interests in Azerbaijan and Georgia, India, within the context of this clash on the road to the nuclear deal. And I think you have to view the 2015 plot within that context. Now, the Brits kept it quiet, I think, for fear of jeopardizing the very sensitive negotiations. And what was released in the Israeli press is that it was the Israeli government that tipped off the UK to the stockpile.
Yossi, as Rafael said, obviously the Mossad, or as it was published, was involved in disclosing information to the Brits. Hezbollah went very far, not only plotting a terror attack in London, but actually building bombs, weapons in the UK capital. That's something different. It's not Bangkok, it's not Azerbaijan, it's London, it's Europe. They went, they had lots of courage.
Yes, but we have to refer to the wide infrastructure of Iran. Hezbollah is part of the infrastructure of Tehran, and we should remember who is involved in these activities. We have the Iranian Foreign Ministry, which it has a department 2010, which is 210, which is in charge of assisting Hezbollah, the MOIS, the Iranian Intelligence Ministry, and of course, Quds Force. So this network, which is composed by Hezbollah, Quds Force, Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the MOIS, they are conducting these activities. We have seen this in Europe, in Albania, in France, in the recent years, in Germany also. And we have to remember that there were several assassinations of Iranian oppositionists in Europe in recent years. Hezbollah was involved by Talal Khamiya, which heads the Unit 910, which is in charge of the external operations of Hezbollah, which are carried out outside of Lebanon.
At the current situation of Hezbollah, under pressure by Israel, under pressure because of the economic pressure put on Iran, which cut the money that it receives from Tehran, this situation pushes Hezbollah to do more terror attacks, Yossi, or to do less and be more afraid to get even further, even more under pressure?
I think that the orders are not decided by Hezbollah independently. We have to remember that the patron is sitting in Tehran, so Hezbollah has only few credit to be taken here because Soleimani gives the orders, and Hezbollah can tell Soleimani and the leadership in Tehran that it cannot do terror attacks now, so it can done in Yemen or across Iraq.
Yeah. So, Rafael, I'll follow up on that with you. That's a continuous question that all researchers like you and army officers that I'm talking within the Israeli intelligence here that are dealing with. Is Hezbollah a Lebanese patriot or Iranian proxy?
Right. I mean, I think you highlight exactly the sort of debates within the academic and governmental community. And I think the answer is that they're a multifaceted organization. They have members in the governing cabinet. They have a social services component. They have a guerrilla militia army, and they have a terrorist component. And you can't deny the existence of each one of those four quarters, which make up an integral part of the organization.
And if they have to take a decision whether to go for a terror attack or to do something around the world, the decision is being taken in Tehran by Qasem Soleimani, in Lebanon by Hassan Nasrallah, or it's a mutual decision?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer. I think that there's no doubt that some of these very high-stakes operations in Europe had Iranian sanction. It seems implausible that Hezbollah operatives would choose to carry out an attack against an Israeli target in Western Europe without the sanctioning of the highest Hezbollah leadership or possibly the Iranian government. Just to highlight, you mentioned the London plot being sort of right in Europe, in the heartland of Western Europe. This was 2015. Don't forget, in 2013, there's the suicide bombing of the bus in Burgas, Bulgaria, which was by a Hezbollah operative. And this was in the Bulgarian courts and authorities released information about a Hezbollah operative with dual citizenship, Lebanon and a Western European country, using a fake driver's license, etc.
When we speak of such issues, we say follow the money. And Hezbollah's money obviously comes from Iran, and Iran, under the sanctions, are in deep troubles. How much it affects, if at all, Hezbollah in Lebanon?
I think it's a very good question, especially in light of the increased sanctions by the U.S. government and the Trump administration sort of racking up pressure against Iran. There's no doubt that the Iranian economy is in trouble, which cascades onto Hezbollah's own sort of military economy. Hundreds of millions of dollars, upwards of 700 million, according to U.S. government assessments in the media, go to Hezbollah militarily, to their social services component, and there's no doubt that they are having to tighten their purse strings. There's been an increased effort by Hezbollah, in a sense, to fundraise within the local Shia community. There's been lots of announcements asking for donations to their various support organizations from the Shia community in Lebanon and around the world. And the difficulties that Iran finds itself in are cascading on to Hezbollah. However, they are a very resilient organization, economically and militarily, and they have various income streams from all sorts of illicit places that are outside of the Western banking sector.
Yossi, we've heard Hassan Nasrallah giving a speech a week ago, and I think I've never ever seen him so nervous. He was sweating. He was a different Nasrallah. It was obvious that he's under pressure, right?
Yes, we have to remember that, as Rafael said, there is a huge economic pressure on Hezbollah. Now, we have seen several reports by the Washington Post and Washington Institute, the research of Hanin Radar, and we have seen that Hezbollah now is trying to cover its financial crisis, but we know that Hezbollah has no money to pay for various operatives who came back from Syria. We read that El Manar TV of Hezbollah, there is some rearrangement in the personnel of El Manar. According to reports in Lebanon, also the operations of Hezbollah in Syria are reconsidered now.
So, Rafael, I want to sum up with you and ask you, Hezbollah in such a situation, being with its back to the wall, economically, even tactically on the ground, we've seen the tunnel issue with Israel and what's going on in the Golan Heights, etc., etc. Hezbollah in such a situation is a more dangerous enemy vis-a-vis Israel and the West?
Their current situation is sort of double-faced. They're fighting in Syria right now, gaining enormous military and tactical experience. you know, historically fighting the Israeli army within the Lebanese villages in the hills of southern Lebanon. You're now fighting within the, you know, urban warfare campaign alongside the Syrian army with Russian military assistance, exposure to Syrian and Russian military equipment, acquiring all sorts of military technology and weaponry as part of this conflict. That's sort of the benefit of the Syrian campaign. The downside, they've lost upwards of 1,500 to possibly 1,800 soldiers, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 injured. And this has caused an economic strain, which plays into the economic difficulties that they're in because they take care of their wounded and their martyrs in light of the sanctions. And also militarily, losing a core group of seasoned fighters. Hezbollah, in a sense, is trying to project deterrence against the Israeli army, as they always have, with Hassan Nasrallah's speeches, you know, promising to take over the Galilee, as he did as early as 2014, the acquisition of rockets against the Israeli civilian front. All these things which make the Israeli army think twice. But I think Hezbollah, in an effort to project deterrence, has also highlighted its weaknesses have been highlighted by the uncovering of the 6 tunnels just a few months ago.
Yes,
and I don't think if you listen closely to Nasrallah's speeches, they're not looking for a war.
Yes,
right now,
deterrence works both sides of the border, apparently. Rafael Marcus in New York, Yossi Mansharov here in Jaffa. Thank you very much both for joining me.